Hey friends, welcome back to Soundstage EDU. This is Mike, your host, and I just wanted to do a little wrap-up episode as our marching season comes to a conclusion. And if your season did just wrap, I already know. Your heart's probably a mix of pride, exhaustion, and maybe a little disappointment. I've seen the conversations that have been going on in the group, and I'm feeling you. But that's because that's the rhythm of Bandtober, right? It's all go, no quick. All gas, no brakes, until the last performance ends and the props get loaded, and suddenly you come to realize that it's over for the season. And if you're anything like most programs I've been around lately, the talk on the field, on the bus, backstage, online, it sounds a lot like this. Well, the scores don't make sense. We worked harder than they did. Or, my absolute favorite, if we had that kind of budget, we'd be right up there too. And I get it. I really do. Because it can feel unfair. It can look like money wins. It can sound like all the effort you poured into it somehow just didn't translate. But before we close the book on the season, I want to offer you something different. A chance to look at the season through a lens that maybe doesn't get as much airtime as it should. First, let's talk about what actually happened this season. You showed up. You built something from scratch in July that somehow came alive by October. You turned dots on a page into a moving, breathing, living work of art. You learned new drill. You learned new music. You learned how to push through weather, long rehearsals, and bus rides that always seemed to take a little bit too long. You learned that you could handle more than you thought. And those moments, when the final set hit perfectly, or the last chord rang out just right, or the audience stood up, that's the win. The win isn't always a trophy. It's that feeling in your chest that says, we did it. It's that bond you built with the people around you. It's the growth that no judge can ever put on a sheet. Now let's talk about the elephant on the 50-yard line. The scores. Every year, around this time, there's a wave of frustration. The system's broken. The judges are inconsistent. It's not fair. And listen, some of that frustration is valid. Because when you pour hundreds of hours into something and then a number gets flashed on a screen, it can feel like that number defines you. But here's the truth. That number isn't the whole story. Scores are data points. They're snapshots. They capture execution, effect, design. Sure. But what they don't capture is your heart. They don't measure growth. They don't account for context. A band with 10 staff members, custom props, and professional designers isn't automatically better. They're just operating with a different set of tools. And that's not unfair, guys. That is resource stewardship. Because let's be honest, this activity has always been about using what you have and doing something incredible with it. That's true for a band of 400 or a band of 40. The difference between them isn't who cares more. It's about how they prioritize. So let's talk about the budget myth. Let's tackle that head on. Because I've heard this over and over. It goes something like this. If we just had their budget, we'd win too. But what if I told you that's not the full picture? The programs sitting at the top did not start there. They didn't win because of money. They earned the money because of consistency. Let that sink in for a second. Because this is central to the Soundstage EDU message. They built a culture. They built trust in their community. They built results that people wanted to invest in. Listen, money doesn't buy success. It amplifies it. It's not that you can't compete. It's that your community might not yet know the power of what's being built. And that's where the real work begins. Because programs that thrive, they don't wait for funding. They organize. They build booster systems. They fundraise. They tell their story. They get in front of local businesses and say, hey, what we're doing here matters. That's not privilege. That's initiative. So instead of saying we can't compete with them, start saying we can learn from them. Because your kids, your staff, your parents, they're no less capable, no less talented, no less passionate. They just need a culture that believes the same. Now let's talk about what's really underneath all of this. Because when we say the system isn't fair, what we're often really saying is, I'm hurt. We gave everything and it feels like it didn't count. And that's okay. It's okay to feel that. That's the human side of this. Don't let the sadness turn into bitterness, though. Let it turn into fire. That's how next year starts. Right now. Not with the announcement of the next show theme, not with the next staff meeting. It starts with this moment where you decide that this season didn't break you, it built you. The lessons you learned this fall are the foundation of everything that comes next. If you learned how to clean drill faster, that's a win. If you learned how to manage volunteers better, that's a win. If you learn how to stretch your budget further, communicate more clearly, and stay more organized, all wins. These aren't consolation prizes. They are growth indicators. So now what? Now we rest. We take a breath, we celebrate, we reflect, and then, and only then, do we rebuild. If you're a student, start journaling about what worked and what didn't. If you're a parent, jot down ideas while they're fresh. What could we do differently next year? If you're a director, capture the data now while the season is still fresh in your mind. Because 6 months from now, when the next design cycle starts, that information will be gold. And if you're one of the ones who's still feeling low, remember this. A score cannot measure impact. It cannot measure love. And it certainly cannot measure legacy. And at the end of the day, that's what this whole thing is about. So to every band out there who didn't get the number they hoped for, congratulations. You just finished a season that changed you. To every parent who drove a trailer, fed a kid, patched the uniform, or picked up trash after a long night, you did it. To every director who held it together when it felt like the wheels were coming off, you did it. And to every student who gave up weekends, comfort, and sometimes sanity, you did it. You didn't just march a show. You became one. And that is what lasts. So don't let a number tell you who you are. Let your effort, your heart, and your impact do that instead, because this isn't the end. This is just the intermission. And when the lights come back up and next season starts, stronger, smarter, and more united than ever. So take a breath, friends. Celebrate the wins that don't fit on a scoreboard. And remember, the band kids you just watched grow up a little bit this fall, they're going to carry this forever. Because the lessons of marching band aren't about rankings. They're about resilience. And that's a skill that wins in life every single time. So until next time, this is Soundstage EDU. Keep showing up because the right people are listening. Let's raise the bar together.